Something you should know about me is I initially got into consuming sports content by being absolutely obsessed with both the NBA and the NFL draft. So I've been captivated and absolutely intrigued by the concept of a NFL draft bust. How does a player become a bust? Is he a bust before he enters a team? Would he have been a bust if he was drafted by a different team? Could it be his fit into a scheme? Or could it be that he was just completely mismanaged by the team that drafted him? Maybe he lacked a specific work ethic, or maybe he never had the opportunity to succeed in the first place. Well, what we're going to be discussing today are players that appear to be NFL draft busts that can still revive their careers in the 2020 NFL season. Now, you have to bear in mind, a player could be considered to be a draft bust for any particular reason, but at the end of the day, it has to do with the production that he puts on the field and how satisfied and happy his team is with him. Really quickly, guys, this channel has been going absolutely berserk recently. We've been averaging over 1,000 subscribers a day. I am on a manifest destiny to push towards 100,000 subscribers before the new NFL season. So if you enjoy NFL content, please take a moment to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my notifications to be alerted every time I upload. The only other thing I wanted to tell you guys is I live stream on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 9 p.m. Pacific time, and I just uploaded a career sim for Tua Tagovailoa on my gaming channel Flight Plays. I think we almost perfected this entire simulation concept. I like to get your guys' input. I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. Where that intro at, bro? Mic check 1 2 1 2. The very first player that we have to discuss on this entire list is a player that I can't even believe we're discussing on this list, and that's Leonard Fournette. Now, if you are watching this video, you might be thinking, Mike, how on earth is Leonard Fournette considered to be a draft bust? And to be honest, I couldn't really tell you, because his rookie season, he was absolutely dominant. The Jaguars were moving the ball, they had a stifling defense, and he rushed for over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. His next season was hampered by injury issues, and he only was able to play in 8 games, and he only sustained 439 yards. But this past season, he seemed to have been improving. He rushed the ball 15 times for over 1,100 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he averaged 4.3 yards per carry. I personally don't look at Leonard Fournette and say, oh my god, what a complete waste of talent. The reason why the media and apparently the Jaguars view him as a draft bust is because Leonard Fournette had these crazy expectations placed upon him when he entered the NFL. To give you a perfect comparison for Leonard Fournette, for basketball fans, Leonard Fournette is essentially the Andrew Wiggins of the NFL. He came out of high school with these crazy expectations of being the next coming of Adrian Peterson. He was the #1 ranked recruit in the 2014 recruiting class, and whoever got Leonard Fournette was destined to win national championships and see him hoist the Heisman Trophy. Well, that didn't end up happening, but he still displayed enough talent to get drafted in the top 5 of the NFL draft. And the Jaguars picked him #4 overall over the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. When you make that type of investment in a player, you're expecting him to at least put up some numbers that were similar to Ezekiel Elliott. And while Leonard Fournette showed us that he is fairly good, and I believe if he was placed behind the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, he'd be an incredible performer, the Jacksonville Jaguars are simply not satisfied and declined his 5th-year option. Now look, the reason why I think Leonard Fournette can still resurrect his career is because I don't think he's had a bad career at all. I just think he's being completely mismanaged by the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the guy's actually an incredible football player, and he just needs to play for a team that truly appreciates what he does. I don't even want to imagine Leonard Fournette on the Philadelphia Eagles, but I feel like if he's able to stick it out another year, give us another 1,000-yard plus rushing season with 4.3 yards per carry and a couple touchdowns, then he's going to have no trouble latching on with a new team next season, be it the Philadelphia Eagles, be it the LA Rams, be it any team. Up next, we have Josh Rosen, and you guys already know that I could rant about Josh Rosen over and over and over again, and I have a very big list to get to, so I'm going to try to keep it short. Obviously, we could all agree unanimously that Josh Rosen clearly didn't have the opportunity to succeed at the NFL level, playing for a first-year head coach in Steve Wilkes, who clearly didn't have his offensive offensive scheme down, who had a completely barren offensive line, who gave Josh Rosen pretty much only Larry Fitzgerald and a broken down David Johnson to throw to, was just not the proper place for Josh Rosen to succeed. Then trading him to the Miami Dolphins, who literally traded away Laramie Tunsil, their left tackle, and traded away Kenny Stills, and put Josh Rosen under center to pretty much redo his entire rookie year, was not the move either. So at this point, Josh Rosen's perceived as damaged goods, and he's just melting on the Miami Dolphins depth chart. And I really think the only way this guy is going to be able to resurrect his career is if Bill Belichick hits up the Miami Dolphins in the middle of the year, which I don't think they will, because I feel like the reason the Miami Dolphins acquired Josh Rosen to begin with was so the New England Patriots couldn't get their hands on him. Isn't that kind of messed up? A division rival's literally sabotaging the career of an individual because they're afraid of what might happen to him if Bill Belichick gets his hands on him. Now look, I could be a little bit of a conspiracy theorist here, but that's actually what I believe. Now, if you ask me, what's going to end up happening to Josh Rosen is I feel like some team is going to try to make a trade offer for him. I believe the Miami Dolphins will probably trade him. Say if the Phillip Rivers experiment doesn't work in Indianapolis, or Ben Roethlisberger gets injured once again. I know both of those teams are in the AFC, but pretty much the only way I could see Josh Rosen resurrecting his career this year is if he gets traded to another team to back up a quarterback and command a fairly simple system. I still think this guy has a ton of potential, man. He is the exact same age as Joe Burrow is, who was the #1 overall pick in this year's NFL draft, and he's handled this entire mismanagement of his career with class and dignity. Up next, we have Taco Charlton. He was initially drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, who viewed him as a huge project player, and he simply refused to acknowledge that. His rookie season, he only notched 3 sacks. In his sophomore season, he notched 1 sack, but he didn't get a lot of opportunities according to himself. He went to the Miami Dolphins last season, and he had more sacks in that one season than his entire career with the Dallas Cowboys. And now he has a chance with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to be joining a phenomenal Kansas City Chiefs pass rush that features Chris Jones, Frank Clark, and Emmanuel Ogbah. But he's going to have to see if he could even make the roster first. If he does make the roster this year, this is a tremendous opportunity to boost his stock and completely resurrect his career. And if you ask me, I think he's in the perfect place to do it. Up next, we have, and I can't believe I'm saying this, we have Mitchell Trubisky. And originally, I looked at Trubisky's highlights and I thought to myself, okay, what's wrong with this player? Why is he so bad? Well, I dove in on some film analysis, I watched some great NFL YouTubers, and I kind of figured it out for myself. You see, there's a lot of times where Mitchell Trubisky has a beautiful option in front of him and a beautiful read in front of him, but he opts for the more conservative option, and that kind of takes his team out of games and doesn't allow his defense to do their job. But I feel like that's an easy fix. I feel like the biggest thing going against Mitchell Trubisky right now is the fact that he was drafted right before Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, and one of them already has a Super Bowl, whereas the other had a phenomenal rookie season. Up until this point, Trubisky hasn't really shown that he is a great quarterback at all. He's just shown that he's an average quarterback, and the Chicago Bears don't really have time to wait for Trubisky to prove himself because he's still on a rookie contract and he has a phenomenal team around him with an offensive mastermind as a head coach. I feel like having Nick Foles there to mentor him could potentially help him out, or it could completely blow up in his face. Regardless, hopefully all this offseason chatter about him kind of lights a fire underneath his ass, and hopefully as a result of it, he shows a significantly improved season. I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is a terrible quarterback by any means. I feel like the Bears are just not in a situation to allow him to develop because they want to compete now. He's 13th in the NFL in interceptable passes, which are passes that he throws that could be intercepted by another cornerback but didn't get intercepted, with 19, which ties him with Patrick Mahomes. He improved his completion percentage from his rookie year to his sophomore year by 7%, but it regressed slightly this past year and he became more of a dink and dunk quarterback. This year is probably the biggest year for him of all because he could either come out of this with a crazy new contract or by establishing himself as a career backup. I don't think Trubisky will ever not have a job in the NFL because he's still a very average quarterback. He just isn't good enough to be drafted over the likes of Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. Up next, we have Corey Davis, whose niche is apparently being taken over by A.J. Brown. You see, Corey Davis was a top 5 pick in the 2017 NFL draft, and there was already a really good wide receiver drafted 2 picks after him. To give you an idea, in 2018, Corey Davis had 112 targets, and he was only able to convert that for 891 yards. For comparison, Mike Williams was able to convert on 90 targets for over 1,000 yards and 2 touchdowns, and 2 years ago, Mike Williams came down with 10 touchdowns. And don't bring quarterback into the picture because Phillip Rivers was absolutely atrocious at slinging the pigskin last year, but that's not the biggest problem here. The biggest problem is A.J. Brown is clearly establishing himself as Ryan Tannehill's favorite target. In his very first year for the Tennessee Titans, he had over 1,000 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. You best believe the Titans are not going to pay Corey Davis if they already have another really good wide receiver that's going to probably end up costing them less for the next couple of years. But maybe a full offseason with Ryan Tannehill could end up yielding some positive results for Corey Davis. We'll have to wait and see. Speaking of Corey Davis, let's discuss Marcus Mariota, his former quarterback, real quick. The former number 2 overall pick in the 2015 NFL draft was a player that I personally believe was going to be a remarkable NFL player, but I personally think he was also mismanaged. He had to deal with a lot of offensive coordinators and various coaching changes throughout his career. One of his head coaches was a notorious quote-unquote quarterback killer, according to Matt Leinart. But I believe going to Las Vegas will do a lot of wonders for Marcus Mariota. Yeah, he's not going to be starting a lot of games. I don't think he's necessarily a threat to Derek Carr's starting QB position, but I do believe some stability with a quarterback genius like John Gruden could help him rebuild his stock and result in the Oakland Raiders either trading him to another team or him eventually signing with a team that will give him an opportunity. Bear in mind, Mariota is currently only 26 years old. He's the same age as Dak Prescott, so he still has some time to make a late run in his NFL career. He just needs the proper guidance, and I believe he has that in John Gruden. Speaking of Johns, let's discuss John Ross, because I think out of everyone on this list, he probably has the lowest likelihood of potentially rebuilding his stock, and this is why. The Cincinnati Bengals already had a phenomenal lineup of wide receivers before they decided to draft T. Higgins out of Clemson. They already had A.J. Green and Tyler Boyd, and they had John Ross, who they drafted with a top 10 pick. You see, my biggest concern with Henry Ruggs of the Las Vegas Raiders is because I'm worried he could turn into John Ross. And when John Ross was drafted, I was worried that he could turn into Darius Hayward-Bay. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't know how much of John Ross's lack of production is his own fault or just terrible scheming, because I do believe that if he ended up on a team that truly knew how to use him, he would do a phenomenal job. I'm actually surprised that the Philadelphia Eagles didn't hit up the Cincinnati Bengals for a John Ross trade, but regardless, they declined his 5th-year option, and he is going to hit the market no matter what. So this is his final year to prove himself, and I believe he can do so if he somehow builds a rapport with brand new quarterback Joe Burrow in year 1, and I consider this to be the true year 1 of Zach Taylor's new offense. I don't think Zach Taylor was doing anything funky or interesting last year without his first-round offensive tackle in Jonah Williams, without A.J. Green, so we'll have to wait and see what John Ross's role is. Very worst case scenario, he ends up being the next coming of Tavon Austin. And I think the number 1 player that probably has the best likelihood of reviving his career in general is Jameis Winston. Like, I absolutely love the way this guy's story is turning out, because he was drafted number 1 overall by the division rival Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It didn't work out with the Buccaneers. They had a better opportunity to go after Tom Brady. Jameis Winston decides to go and sign with the New Orleans Saints and back up Drew Brees. Drew Brees is clearly the inverse of Jameis Winston. It's very interesting because Brees is considered to be the most accurate quarterback in NFL history. Jameis is probably the most erratic quarterback in NFL history. Any guy that throws for over 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 30 interceptions may deserve that title. But what's really fascinating is Before Drew Brees came to the New Orleans Saints, he did have a knack for turning the ball over. And pretty much the New Orleans Saints are trying to do the same thing again. They're trying to find their quarterback of the future by taking on another quarterback that another team casted away and hopefully developing him a little bit. And it worked the first time with Drew Brees. I'm sure it will work with Jameis Winston, especially because I feel like he has a chip on his shoulder because he gets to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2 times a year if he's successful. Drew Brees is a very capable and willing mentor. Sean Payton is an offensive genius, and they have tremendous weapons around them. They have Alvin Kamara, they have Michael Thomas, they recently signed Emmanuel Sanders, they have a great offensive line, they have a phenomenal defense. You get what I'm saying. Sure, he's not going to start this year, but he's going to sit back and probably perfect his craft this year, which can result in tremendous results in the future. Let me know if I omitted someone off of this list. Besides that, I'm your boy Microphone, and I'll catch you guys in our next upload.